This is why it's so interesting, because when I read the New Testament myself, and I obviously am not a believer in the divinity of Jesus, but when I see what Jesus actually has to say about the Old Testament, it seems to me very similar to the stuff that Zechariah is saying, or that Jeremiah is saying. Sure. Right? Jeremiah says that the sacrifices themselves are basically of no use unless there's actual meaning behind the sacrifices. God wasn't there because he likes the barbecue, right? It actually has to have some meaning.
We were talking about this this thing in our Ishmael in the Bible and Quran video. So check that out if you're interested. We talked about this in respect to Judaism and Islam. This is with Judaism and Christianity. But we talked about this and a whole bunch of other things. So with Islam, interestingly enough, a sacrifice is not a sacrifice. It's more of a dedication. They dedicate the lamb to God, and they can partake of the lamb afterwards. Whereas in Judaism, they sacrifice it completely and they let it burn through. So that's a huge difference. But I mean, that's a bit of a tangent, but I thought I'd throw that out there. Yeah.
Right. It actually has to have some meaning. And when Jesus comes along and he says, you're focusing in on all the details of the Sabbath without actually recognizing the rationale for the Sabbath. And then he exaggerates it beyond the point. It's interesting.
Without loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Right, exactly. And then he, even to make a point, exaggerates it beyond the scope of what Jewish law would permit. So, for example, when he says, you're going to leave a guy to die in a ditch on the Sabbath, that's against Jewish law. You can't do that. You have to violate the Sabbath in order to save a life. This is like basic black letter Jewish law. But he's making a point, which is, you guys are ignoring what's important in order to focus in on the mundane aspect of practice. Like that is.
All right. See, that's something we learned when we were reading Mark in our Bible Study with Me Live series, where Jesus takes a step back and he looks at things from the top down. He's a big picture thinker, right? It seemed like the people around him were so focused on, let's use the example Ben gave, so focused on the rules and the laws, right? And you have to follow this and you have to follow that. Whereas Jesus was gets right down to the core of it and then finds out what is important, right? You have somebody, let's say that person was sick and dying, right? And Jesus could help them. But it's the Sabbath. What are you going to do? Are you going to help this person, or are you going to ignore them because it's a Sabbath, right? In order to make that decision, you need to understand the Sabbath. You need to fully understand it to the core, why we have a Sabbath, why God gave us a Sabbath, what's the purpose of it, right? Why it's good for us, right? And with that information, then you can make the decision to help the person, right? And that just comes down to a priority and being of good character and a deeper understanding, right? Not just following the law for it's the sake of following the law, right? And yeah, let's just keep going.
Practice. Like that's not unique to Jesus. In other words, there's a long prophetic tradition of people saying exactly that. And in the modern Jewish world, it's called Musar. It's basically just telling people what they should understand about the values beyond the black letter law. And this is why I think it's
Musards. If anybody knows more about that, let me know down in the comment section. Musards. But also, Ben, I feel like the reason why Jesus did what he did is because people lost sight of what is truly important. And they were so focused on obeying the law that they forgot why they were obeying the law, you know?
It's fascinating to me when I talk with people who are real biblical scholars from the Christian side, that all the I won't say all. A lot of the areas where Christian scholars think that Christianity has departed dramatically from Judaism,
and absolutes, right?
I think are not really dramatic departures. They seem to be reflections of Judaism from a slightly different angle. Even so far as a lot of the stuff in the Sermon on the Mount about, love, when it says that you're supposed to love thy brother as thyself, and you're supposed to treat your brother as you would wish to be treated, and all of this. I mean, that's present in the Old Testament too.
No,
right?
I think what Jesus did in the Sermon on the Mount was elevate the teaching of the rabbis. Elevate it. He went above them. He said, well, you've been told you shouldn't commit adultery. I'm telling you, if you look at a woman to lust after her, you've committed adultery in your heart. He got to the heart of the law. Yeah. They were content with the practical application of the law. He was not content with that. So I would say that Jesus was the purest Jew that ever lived. because he understood the elevation of the law to the heart and the soul. It would be a monstrous responsibility for some committee to have invented Jesus. When you hear even the people in his time saying, "Never a man spoke like this man," that he is a person that doesn't seem to have been a product of human invention. And you could say, well, Jesus is a good teacher, but good teachers don't claim to be God. They don't say, "I and God are one." They don't say, "I created the universe."
What about false prophets, though? I'm sure there were false prophets back then, right? And there's false prophets now, people saying that they're Jesus. I mean, I don't know if people are saying they're God. I'm sure there are, probably some cult leader or something. But I guess they wouldn't be a good person. They wouldn't teach the things Jesus taught. They wouldn't have that, you know what I mean? They wouldn't be good because they have an ulterior motive. So maybe that's what he's trying to say.
They don't say, "I and God are one." They don't say, "I created the universe." That's not a good teacher. That's somebody who's crazy, is a lunatic, or somebody who's trying to pull off a huge deception. So you cannot come to Jesus and just patronize him as a noble, good Jewish teacher, because he crossed a line. He crossed a severe line, and the Jews saw that. Either he's the Messiah or he is a blasphemer, and he needs to be put to death. And those are really the choice.
Right there. Let me play that again.
To death. Line. And the Jews saw that. Either he's the Messiah.
I got to go back more.
So you cannot come to Jesus and just patronize him as a noble, good Jewish teacher, because he crossed a line. He crossed a severe line, and the Jews saw that. Either he's the Messiah or he is a blasphemer.
Right? They saw that. They saw that there was a clear difference between Jesus and the other false prophets and the other Jews and the other leaders, that they needed to make an example of him. They said that he is either the Son of God or a blasphemer and a false prophet, right? So, I mean, they were saying it back then, you know? They had that question. They drew that line in the sand.
Or he is a blasphemer, and he needs to be put to death. And those are really the choices you have. So when you ask me to show the variation between Judaism and Christianity, morally, no, there's none. And in terms of God, the same, we don't have the same God as Muslims. Allah is not the same God as Jehovah.
Time out. Allah is not the same God as Jehovah? Wait a second. I thought he was, because, right, we had a split between Isaac and Ishmael, right? Both the sons of Abraham. And then Ishmael got sent off with Hagar. God still blessed Ishmael. An angel came to him, right? And God said, "You're going to have many descendants." And one of those descendants was Muhammad. So either something went wrong along the way, and God is not Allah, I don't know, or Allah is not Jehovah, or this guy's wrong. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? That's sort of a controversial statement he just said. What do you guys think about that down in the comment section? Let me know.
We don't have the same God as Muslims. Allah is not the same God as Jehovah. We don't have the same gods as any other false religion, but we have the same God as Jews and Christians. He is the one true creator God, the one true living God. He has a aseity. That is, he is eternal by his own nature. He is uncreated, the uncreated one. We believe he is more than one person in one God. That's why Genesis says, "Let us make man in our own image." And relationship comes from a God who has relationship within himself. But the distinction between Christianity and Judaism is what we do with Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
The writer of Hebrews says, if a sacrifice had been enough to atone for sin, they would have stopped making them. But they never stopped. Morning and evening, morning and evening, morning and evening, morning and evening. You know, basically a priest was a butcher. He had blood up to his waist. Right? I mean,
That's true.
He was a butcher. He had blood up to his waist. And the frustration of it, even on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, all the bloodletting, And year after year after year after year, this goes on, this goes on, this goes on. You have this most amazing thing. You come to the death of Jesus Christ, and at the death of Christ, the veil in the temple is rent from top to bottom. The Holy of Holies is thrown open. Wow, that's a statement from God, because it couldn't have been ripped by men from the top down. The way to God is open. There's no more barriers.
See, just a little background on that. The reason why it was such a big deal is because it was so tall, right? The curtain was so tall and it was thick. So it was like, who could do that? No one can reach that high, and no one has the strength to rip it. So that's why it was a big deal. Like, it was God that did it.
Top down, the way to God is open. There's no more barriers, because a suitable sacrifice has been found. This is the Lamb of God. And amazingly, soon after that, the whole sacrificial system ends. Because
Right? Jews don't sacrifice anymore. Why don't Jews sacrifice today? It was after Jesus was on the cross, right? Or is there another reason? Can Jews give another reason why they don't sacrifice today? I'd be really curious. Let me know down in the comment section if you know.
that's the final sacrifice. And God validates that sacrifice by raising him from the dead. The resurrection is a provable historical fact. So I think that...
Okay. I keep pausing it a lot, but he said the resurrection is a provable historical fact. If you want to know more about that and that aspect, check out this book called The Case for Christ. They made a movie about it actually too. But yeah, check that out. It's really interesting.
Is a provable historical fact. So I think that's the issue. It's what do you do with Jesus?
What do you do with Jesus? I mean, that's a big question to end on, right? So let's take that into consideration. Let's say it is a provable historical fact that Jesus died and was resurrected, right? Let's say that's a provable historical fact. What do you do with Jesus? And I'm going to leave you guys with that question. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I will see you guys later for the next video. Goodbye.